Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on July 21st, 2023 at approximately 4:23 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life, and the philosophies of life I talk about are the philosophies I personally live my life by. With this in mind, what we deal with on this channel is very simple. Tools that work. I know they work because I use them. I also have a lot of corroborating evidence because with over 100,000 clients under my belt, I've got a lot of feedback from other people that have used the exact same tools. Now, many of the tools I talk about, and a lot of the philosophies of life, you'll find in the books that I write. Okay, as well as in the free newsletter I now am putting out. Now, before I go any further on this, we will start off with the obvious issue. Turning that around, I think I figured out why that keeps doing that. We have Eternity Eternal in the house with the gold. And Steve Knox, how you doing? You've come in with the silver. Nathan of the Quantum Show is in with the bronze. And then we go down a little, and that's pretty much where we're in right now. Yeah, Nathan's going, he's driving to the Bigfoot conference. Now, if I remember Bigfoot properly, you got to take Kokanee with you. At least that's what the commercials were showing. Of course, I don't buy much into that. And Chad, how you doing? Hope you are doing well. And you are in with honorable mention. Now, where did my sheet go? That little one there. Get it out of the way so I can actually work with what I'm aiming for. Blow that up to full screen. I'll tell you, I've been having nothing but computer problems today, so, I was actually amazed this thing kicked into work today. Philip, how are you? Glad you could join us. Now we have Nathan, and where is Nathan? Okay, and this is the link to Nathan's show, the Quantum Show. Absolutely drop in. He comes on tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. PST. Okay. Absolutely drop in, give him a listen. If you like what he has to say, do give him a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Okay, and then of course share the daylights out of it. Now, Chad here is also in the house, and this is the link to Chad's archives. Well, so where are we here? And we paste that in, and there is the link to Chad's archives. And again, absolutely drop in, give him a listen. Do give him a thumbs up if you like the standard Chad, the archives, and share the daylights out of them. This is the information that is available through both of these channels that is absolutely brilliant in most cases. Certainly, there are things that are said on anybody's channel that everybody will not agree with. Matter of fact, as near as I've come to understand, if everybody's agreeing with you, odds are there's a problem. Okay, Lord knows, it's like I keep telling people, hey, Shadow, how we doing? Before we go any further there, we have Shadow in the house here. And therefore, we do the important thing. Shadow is kind enough to share his time with us. So it's only fair that we pop his link in and give you the heads up. Go drop in on his stream. Give it a listen. If you like what he has to say, do give him a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share the daylights out of it. Oh, Philip, before you go down that channel, down that particular channel, that particular path, Myself, I don't follow politics, and therefore I don't bother dealing with it here. There's a lot of different places to deal with politics. The whole political system is a little bit of a screwball mess, if you ask me. Okay, no problem there, Shadow. So, from my standpoint, I just don't go into the politics. As a matter of fact, I should do that. I should add that, but that's an excellent thought. Because if you're getting the newsletter, if you're getting my newsletter, Positive Perspectives, you'll find something rather intriguing. You'll find something rather intriguing. In my newsletter, my sports section boils down to one team wins, whoever gets the most points wins. You want more detailed information, go someplace else. Go find it anywhere. The same applies to politics, and I do appreciate that because we do have to add a political section. But like I said, I don't follow politics. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I follow it enough that I do participate in voting. Okay. And there's all kinds of questions around how effective that is. But August is out, so the September edition will have a political section. But I will tell you, the political section is going to be a little different. I agree with you wholeheartedly there, Philip. I know from my standpoint, I'm certainly not going to let it go political. At least not on this stream and not in my newsletter. I mean, there's a lot of politics that go on. Difference is, from my standpoint, I don't have to get involved in it. I'm not running for office. I tried that before. I actually did get onto a board of directors for a park in Kelowna here. Boy, was that an education in stupidity. Okay, you would not believe how out of kilter things are, but I've missed a few people here. And we have Emitonga has come through the door here and slide down a bit. And Cowie, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Well, I'm presuming that you're referring to what inspired me to go into the governing body of the Park Society. Well, what it was I was already on the park. I was actually working with the park. If you know the Kelowna area at all, we had an event here called Rutland May Days. Okay, well, I was already working with them, and it came to my attention that the park itself needed a little bit of redirection. Well, I figured people already knew me. I'd see what I could do about giving it a hand. And that I was on the park for 4 days. For 4 years. But the park I went to work for, the Park Society I went to work for, the park had been bought by 6 Rutland residents. Okay. And back in 1929, the 6 people that bought it and donated it to the community of Rutland with the strict direction. It was never to be sold to the city. It was always to remain a community park. Okay, that's what was laid out. That was what was signed for. Okay, and it was a nice little park. We had a lot of things going on it. But 4 years into it, things changed. And this is going to sound really bad, and I'm making accusations. I'm not pointing fingers and telling who did what. I will tell you, an illegal vote was held that flipped the board of directors over, shunted a lot of the board that was keeping the park alive out of the way, and then the park was sold to the city. And since then, I think I've been on the park grounds once. And that's since 2013. I used to be on it daily. Philip goes, I've mowed the lawn and picked up debris at our local park. Does that count as political? Okay. Well, no, but it does count. In my eyes, it doesn't anyway. But it does count as beneficial. Down in Ben Lee, which is right across the Ben Lee Park, which is right across the park from where I'm across the road from where I am. I spent a lot of time down there without being employed by anybody, picking up the garbage, talking to the troubled kids, right? And again, when it was set up with the best of intentions. Politicians got involved and destroyed the thing. Okay. So, I mean, from my standpoint, I called it a nice little park because it had, it had a lot of green space. We always had the Rutland May Days, the great big social event there, with rides and the whole 9 yards. Right. And people on the park, on the whole, got along really nicely, making it a safe park to go through. City took over. It apparently is no longer that safe to walk through. Can't picture that. Unfortunately, what I'm finding, and this is why I don't go there, the park itself right now, they cut it in half. They've run a road through the middle of it that they didn't, quite frankly, by all residents' accounts, didn't require. The great big community event, the Rutland May Days, is no longer, I don't think it's even in Rutland anymore. Okay. It went the way of the dodo bird. Okay. And they put a bus loop in the middle of the thing. Now, the stupid part of this is all of that collapsed, okay, after heavy politics got involved. And this is why I'm not about to say one party is better than the next, because I've seen stupid moves on all parties. Myself, like I said, I'm quite adept at putting my foot in my mouth. Okay. But where it comes to looking into like this whole idea of vote for this senator, vote for that guy. Not a prayer. I know who I will deal with, and I'm not about to deal with that on air here. Kind of like I won't go too terribly far, although I'm getting further into that, it would seem. Rutland and Kelowna up until 78 were two separate towns, and then when the politicians in Ottawa decide, either in Ottawa or Vancouver or maybe Victoria, but they next step up decide to reorganize the voting districts. They didn't even talk to any of the locals. They went, "You guys are one city now." And I'll tell you, that created a disaster itself. Again, it boiled down to one simple issue. Politics got involved and created chaos. Now, politics are necessary, and every single one of you is a politician. Okay, there's not a person alive that isn't. And apparently, I still have Kraft's disease, as in can't remember a flaming thing. But the reality is, unless you stay focused, you're going to run into problems. Henry, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, from my standpoint, it gets a little more complicated when you start realizing, and some of you are in the same boat that I'm in. Okay, I grew up a full empath, able to feel what people are going through, able to gauge what kind of motivation was behind them. And this is where things got a little complicated. I couldn't deal with frankly, the corruption and the number of people that just fell by the wayside. Okay, I actually ran for president the last year. For president of the Park Society, there were a lot of people that had said that they wanted to, and that they were going to support me. And it had already been determined that the voting was to be done by secret ballot. They pulled a fast one and forced a hands up, a public vote. all but one of the people that said they were going to push to get me into the presidency seating, all but one of them voted the side of the known politicians. Okay, and this is why when people ask me, how am I going to go about building this empire I'm talking about? Well, the easiest way of telling you that is I'm doing it my way. I'm pretty certain there's a song out to that effect. Okay, which boils down to I've got a complete layout all the way up to the point where I can be generating in excess of $1 billion a month, of which, if you take a look at the ratios that I've already laid out, of which I will be taking 800 million of that and putting it back into the community, back to the staff, the providers, and the customers. Oh, there we go. How you doing, football? Glad you could join us. Yeah, football just goes, yeah, it was Usher and Frank Sinatra. But I just decided I was going to build an empire the way I feel it should be done. Not the way everybody else has done it for, quite frankly, centuries. I'm just not interested in repeating the same process. But the reason I started, where are we? Yeah, I love the whole concept. But no, the so-called sanctity of the secret ballot, it's a great idea. But here's where you run into problems. And again, the political system is broken. It's laid out properly. It really is. But it's broken. Now, before I go down that rabbit hole way too far, when the reason I said that I looked at it for Friday being paranormal for beginners, I grew up being able to see the dead, and I didn't realize when I started, I didn't realize they were dead. I just figured it was weird, with something that was new. I mean, I was newborn, and I'm watching people walk out of walls or look through a wall, and they stick their head into my incubator, and they'd smile at me and wave. Kind of an interesting interaction. But I grew up being able to see the deceased, be able to feel what everybody else was going through, and being an uncontrolled telepath, okay, I could tell half the time what people were thinking. Adam, how you doing? Oh, you finally got out. Glad to hear it. It's going to be a little bit of a haul, but you should be there pretty quick. Where are we? Football just ran. Now, this will give you an idea how obtuse and how reclusive I've become. Okay. Football saying the Gulf, where are we here? You heard the Gulf Coast will have a hurricane season like Katrina. Now, I got a really weird question for you, and this will give you an idea of how far I stay away from the world. Okay. Where's the Gulf Coast? And that ultimately is the biggest problem. From my standpoint. Now, I will tell you, Philip, seeing the dead is great. Perfect. Well, they're not wrong. I haven't looked at it too terribly far. I'd have to get a look at a map. Let me just take a look at that. I have a funny little thing here. See, I'm a firm believer there is no such thing as first world, second world, or third world communities. We have one world, and you're all somewhere on this. Okay, but if I spin this around, where the heck are we? There we are. Yeah, I'm looking down here. Yeah, that ought to be fun. Not. That being... Yeah, sad to say, I really am. Where are we? Football. Yeah, borders Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida. Yeah, there was one, the last one, and it sounds really twisted. The last one that was supposed to hit Florida was back in 2019, I think. That was an interesting one. I do appreciate the input there, guys. Now, that said, when I was growing up, I picked up all of this information, and the only thing I got told by mom and dad, okay, I didn't get any guidance for it. All I got told was when I come up with a statement, mom and dad would both look at me and go, keep what you're doing a secret. Okay, don't tell people because they aren't ready to hear it. Okay, well, I didn't listen too terribly well. Okay, I didn't understand what they were talking about. So I kept putting my foot in it. Net result, I grew up really heavily bullied. Okay, really ostracized. I ended up being an outcast amongst outcasts. Now, for those of you that have kids that are behaving a little odd, especially now, kids are going to behave a little odd anyway, but there's a couple of things to keep in mind. If your child seems to get really panicky going to a crowded area, and I don't mean just if it's new people, because kids on the whole will get edgy around new people. I'm talking about the ones that really seem to have trouble staying focused. They seem to be really scattered, bouncing all over the school. Okay. When you've got a child like that, the first thing to look at, okay, is ask yourself this. Is the child misbehaving because they're just a brat? Or are they misbehaving because they're on overload? Now, here's a neat little trick for you, and I've given this to you guys. Okay, I've given you this to you guys before. Okay, if your child's really wound up, okay, there's two things you can do to get him to focus, him or her. And rest assured, it doesn't matter what gender we're talking about or what age. All of it works. Okay, I've done this with kids all the way up to senior citizens. Okay, yeah, and I know that sounds a little off, but what the heck? Method one, if a kid's getting really panicky, okay, take them gently by the hand, okay, hold your finger up in front of them, just one finger, and tell them to focus on that finger. Just hold it right there. Okay, now they'll try and pull away. This is just the way kids are, but it will give them something to focus on. And of course, you hold it back and draw it slowly towards them. It will hold their attention. Okay, you can move it around a little bit. You always do it slowly. So they've got something to track instead of all the emotions that are going on around them. Now, that's the easiest way. And especially if you're dealing with a kid that is like under 5 sort of thing. Prior to that, they'll watch whatever's going on. So this just gives them something to focus on. That will help stabilize their nerves. Net result, they'll calm down. Net result, they'll be able to function more effectively. Okay, that works like a charm. Doesn't matter how old your kid is. Even I did this with my own son, my own sons. If they were having trouble settling, you put them in the crib, you hold one finger up in front of them, and you just tell them, watch the finger. Okay, it may take a couple minutes, but they'll settle down. They'll probably try and reach for the finger. And if that's the case, let them. Okay, it still draws their attention to the finger and away from the overload they're going through. The other option is, once they get to be about 6 or 7 years old, you can get them to take either hand, doesn't matter which one. And for those of you that are going to really point out the obvious, but what if my child doesn't have a hand? Feet work. I've seen phenomenal artists that use their feet to paint. Okay, I figure I can paint just as well with my feet as I can with my hands. It's done the same way. You put your hand in paint, you put it on the table. There it is. Masterpiece. But Get them to take their one hand, put it flat on something that normally sits on the ground. Okay, and tell them to visualize the excess energy running out of their hand, much like water out of a faucet. Again, it will help keep them focused and give them something to concentrate on beyond the energy that's going around. Now, you guys, most of you know of the bubble of white light, the process there. Now, that is usually for people once they get to be about 12 or 13. Okay, if you've got a kid that's quick enough to do these later steps right off the bat, use them. Okay, I just recommend starting on the lower grade and bringing it up. Okay, linguistics, on the other hand, I will talk at the level I work at, and then I'll pare it down if somebody's having trouble understanding it. But there are a couple of things right off the bat. Every child that is born psychic, okay, or with extended senses. Now, I like the term sensitive because they literally are responding to energy that other people have been taught to ignore. What do we got here? Just looking at something. Yeah, football was just saying I was bullied at work. Oh, Philip goes, I was told that my not being able to go from running every day to sitting still every day made me bad. I was only 7 years old, so I had no idea the school was breaking our laws. Well, no doubt. You don't. A 7-year-old should need lawyers. But unfortunately, that goes back into that political thing that I do my best to stay away from. The funny thing is, and I agree with the way school is being untaught right now. It has some severe hiccups. But I will tell you this. Every day of your life, you are in school. The question is, are you going to pull out of school, out of life, what you are looking for, what you feel is going to make you feel better, or are you learning to do exactly what you're told? Okay, school teaches you from the get-go. As a matter of fact, every stage in life, parents, politicians, school, first responders, everybody's taught the same thing. There's not a one of you that isn't taught differently. Because I'll guarantee, and I don't do that very often, but even in the most self-centered adults, okay, they still demand respect. They still demand you do exactly what they tell you. Okay, now, I'm not about to tell people you have to do what I'm saying. Okay, I'm going to tell you the methods I'm using work. Give you an idea. Okay, I told you I was Bill and I was taking this newsletter global. Now, one of you, and I think it was Joe. Okay, I think it was Joe that did it. But one of you turned around and I says, I'm going global. And immediately somebody goes, I'm in Australia. I'm getting the newsletter. You're already global. Well, I'm doing the same thing with the Empire. Okay. See, and here's the thing, Henry. Henry's going, public schools are terrible and it just keeps getting worse. Well, I can honestly say it has a lot to do with my generation, sad to say. But in my generation, we used to have truant officers. If you were late for school, a policeman would come around, a truant officer would come around, collect you up, and take you back to school. Now, do understand something very important about the educational system. Aside from the fact they totally ignore the higher senses. they totally ignore the higher senses, which means so many people get diagnosed with ADHD. They showed a post on Facebook one day that it showed a kid in the 50s. He's staring off into at the ceiling. And, it says 1950. This picture was a normal teenager. Okay. 1995 or something like that, right? Showed the same picture in different clothing and said ADHD. Well, here's the thing. Many people with ADHD are highly active empaths. Okay. They may well be uncontrolled telepaths. You're picking up so much information. So watch your kid. Okay. Many children have what they call an imaginary friend. I'm telling you, I had way more than my fair share of imaginary friends. I was a working medium and didn't know what a medium was. This is the funny thing, Henry. You're told the same thing when you go to church. God loves everybody. So do exactly what God says, or he will beat the living stuffing out of you. Okay. I have no idea what a de facto private school is. I know what a defective private school is, but yeah, you don't usually end up arguing with them. So, and children, this is normal for a child to have an imaginary friend. Okay. One of the worst things that adults ever did, as far as public TV went, was they took the Snuffleupagus, which was an imaginary friend of Big Bird's, and they took it out of Sesame Street, a children's show, and they took it out because it was too silly. It was a children's show. Of course it was silly. When we go here. Iowax, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And just, I haven't seen you in here before, Iowax, which, welcome aboard. And for all of you that haven't been here before, if you've got a question, do me a favor. Put it in all caps, or at least part caps, or even put a wavy sign, something to make it stand out so I can find it. Otherwise, Lord knows I'm going to miss a lot of them. And Iowax was going, so what happens when you break the bottle that captivates someone's interest? What happens if I take a locket that wakes up a zombie and pawn it? Well, a couple of things. What happens when it gets broken? There was a young lad I knew when I was a kid. I will get to that in just half a second there, football. Football's asked, is vampire in a bottle real? And I will deal with that in just a moment. I knew a chap when I was growing up. He believed wholeheartedly that God was a light bulb. And literally without exception, every day he would go into the closet under the stairs where the light bulb was always burning. And he would kneel down and he would pray. He'd do his normal religious thing. He'd sit there and he would pray for all he was worth. He'd give his thanks the whole 9 yards to this light bulb under the closet. Okay, under the staircase. Now, his mom and dad knew he wasn't functioning quite like other kids. So they just made certain every couple of weeks they would change the light bulb. While he was asleep, they'd go in, change the light bulb, and carry on with the day. The Munchkin was like that for literally, he was 17, still living at home. And he was 17. And his parents, for whatever reason, forgot to change the light bulb. So one day, he was 17 years old. He's underneath the staircase, still praying to his God, to his light bulb. The light bulb burnt out while he was praying. At the same time, his mind snapped. Okay, this is what happens when you take away somebody's religious icon when they're not ready for it. Okay, the parents were doing what they thought was right because their own priests wouldn't help them. Okay, they said he was an abomination because he wasn't coming down to the church. I mean, heck, he was barely leaving the basement. And the only reason, from what I gather, they left the basement was because the bathroom was up on the main floor. So he snapped and ended up in an insane asylum for the completely dysfunctional. He couldn't move. Right? He was just a complete mentally. He was a complete write off. Okay, but when you force somebody to let go of their icon, it can have disastrous effects. Okay. Now, absolutely, if you feel there's something a little off, okay, or you feel that they're going down a dangerous path, absolutely open your mouth. But do understand, people, whether they're children or adults, are going to hang on to a religious icon. We're taught that religion is a way to hold things together, to really stay focused. Now, I've got to go get something. I'll be right back. No, it's not my coffee, actually. Oh, what the heck. It's down to a quarter cup. I'm going to have to anyway. I'm going to bring something back to show you here. And yeah, this is plain normal. There are certain staples in life that I do like. Unfortunately, at this point, it's not a heavy duty run on alcohol. It used to be, but that's okay. Anyway, when you have an icon, okay, when people have a religious icon or a spiritual icon, it's absolutely necessary. You got to realize that is the way they hold things. Okay, now, thing was going to show you. I keep telling you guys that I believe in a whole lot of things, not the least of which is I take a look at all of the spiritual paths. Now, this was actually made by my uncle. Okay, as you can tell, it's got similarities between the First Nations and Christianity. Okay, but that was something my uncle made, and I still have that hanging on the wall. Okay, do I believe? Certainly, but I also believe in something I was told by a gentleman I used to work with. It is. Okay. That is a totem pole. Okay. Completely handmade. He did the whole 9 yards himself. And this was done. My uncle was a real heavy duty alcoholic. I've already told you I used to drink a 26 or a night, a day. My uncle used to drink one a meal. And he was a type 2 diabetic. Or more to the point, he was type 1. He was on full injections at the time. But he did it his way as well. Okay, he only used a half of the insulin he was supposed to. The rest he balanced with alcohol. Don't ask how he did it. I didn't agree with it. I didn't think that was a good idea anyway. But let's go way back up here just half a second. There we go. Football, and I did say I was going to come back to this. Is vampire in a bottle real? Well, let me ask you this. Define real. And the reason I say that is a vampire, first of all, we have to understand, is something that it is a physical form. Yes, according to mythology, by the way, vampire and mythology works out really nicely. Sanguine, on the other hand, do not become gaseous. They can move awful quick. But a vampire in a bottle, it's a great trinket. But no, as far as I've ever seen, okay, certainly it's real from the standpoint of, oh, I've got this thing for sale. It's a vampire in a bottle. Okay, now I can claim, and I will tell you this definitely doesn't hold. Okay, I could take this, this little bottle that you buy and I don't remember when this one was bought, but this is Glenfiddich. It's a single malt. I picked it up back when I was drinking heavily. Well, I was drinking heavily back in 1986. Okay, gives you an idea how long it's been around. But I could tell you, this is the essence of vampire in a bottle. Okay, is it real? Well, it's a bottle. But can you put a vampire, an actual vampire, into a bottle? Frankly, good luck. Okay, they are full-sized people. So you either got to have a really big bottle or it ain't going to work that well. Now, where are we here? Yeah, unfortunately, ayahuasca, and that's very much how strong it can get. And this is why I will not tell people you're absolutely wrong. Okay, nobody's opinion can ever be wrong. The information you're working with can absolutely be based on information that is wrong. Okay, or is right, flat out deceptive. One of the things I did discover, when I was dealing with one gentleman, he goes, look, he says, I am a very staunch Christian. He says, God made everyone. He made the man in his own image. He goes, that means he made man inside and out in his image. Now, this whole thing was prompted by the fact I was a working psychic, working for the Rutland Maydays, and the president of the society come in on somebody that was tearing a strip off me for being a psychic. And the president of the Rutland Park Society goes, he says, I'm Christian. He says, God made everyone in his own image. That means inside and out. We all have gifts. He goes, Keith has the gift of being able to see what's going on in a different realm. No problem. He said, I've got the gift of being able to build pretty much anything. But he says, I'm telling you, I'm not going to give Keith a hammer. Okay, at least not and let him swing anywhere near me. I cannot drive a nail unless it's by accident. Okay. Where are we here? Oh, there we go. Phillips, this gives you an idea how far down the road we've gone here. Phillips says de facto versus de jure. Probably pronounced wrong. It was a public school by law, but didn't care what was law, including beautiful laws that nearly everyone celebrates. Long story, many face palms. Yeah, no doubt. It's like talk to the hand. Football goes, is it true that there is an energy drink where witches put spells in it? On an individual basis, undoubtedly. Okay, but if you're asking, is there a corporate one? Not that I'm aware of. Okay, like if you're talking things like Monster Drink or any of these, not, or even what is it now, 5 Hour Energy. As far as I'm aware, nobody's doing that en masse. Now, I may be mistaken, but I'm certainly not going to stand here and say I know of it. I do know that true witches will cast spells, will energize their own drinks and or the drinks of people that come to them, but they do it with a very beneficial purpose in mind. Okay. Now, football goes, is it, oh no, we covered that. Philip's asking, is there a correlation between zombies and lockets? Certainly there is. If we go back to the witch hunts and what have you, and before that, for that matter, people believed that if you used a locket and put it around somebody's neck, and it started off with a blessing, you bless the locket, put it around the neck, and they believed wholeheartedly that it would help the deceased rest in peace. Okay, now this is something that it absolutely has a direct impact on people that are fearing death. Many will turn around, you give them a locket and say, this will make your transition easier. Mentally speaking, it absolutely has a bearing. Is there any correlation in today's world? Now, if we go back to the old magics, we're looking at something that's a whole lot more complicated. Okay, but is there a correlation between a locket stopping a zombie from rising again? Not that I'm aware of. Okay. Now what we got? Henry and Green Engine, we must be old. Oh, football's just saying that. But is our spells, that's something that we should look at down the road. When we're dealing with children, now you gotta remember, children are sponges. And if you tell a child because they won't sit still, or parents will go, you won't sit still. Many times it's not a question of won't. Okay. I'll tell you, if you're an adult and you're wearing shorts and you sit down on a metal pan, okay, like for instance, the old slides, you sit down on one of those, you're getting off it. You're not staying seated. And the thing is, children that are picking up more energy than what they're able to compensate for are not going to be able to focus. Okay, you think about it. I'm sitting here and I always see it. Okay, I'm always up in this corner, up on top of this shelf. There's always a young gentleman sitting up there. Okay, this is just plain normal. I forgot to put it back. This thing. This is what's is my gavel. No, actually, it really isn't. But children, because they're not entirely versed in what they're doing, okay, are going to have to respond. They're going to do what they can, but they need help. They need guidance in figuring out how to focus. Okay, we go down a little further here. Yeah, Iowax goes, I think when the story is good, the bottle is easily replicated and can latch to anyone with repetitive practice, fracturing the reality. Yeah, it can. But that depends a lot on the belief of the person building it and how well they can convey it. Now, that being said, when we are talking about that, and children are extremely susceptible. Okay, you got to remember, if you tell a child all their life they're stupid, you're going to raise an adult that has no idea how to function because they will believe they are stupid. Okay. Yeah, where are we here? Yeah, no doubt. Philip goes, we had an alcohol and caffeine energy drink here that was outlawed. It was called Four Loko. We had one up here and it wasn't an energy drink. It was Jolt Cola. Its claim to fame. It has twice the caffeine of Coca-Cola and all of the sugar. Or was it twice the sugar and all the caffeine? But it was one heck of a jolt to the system. Yeah, Phil goes, I sat still great as a child after I got to do my running, but not before. And the funny thing there is, when kids come into class, okay, you take them for a run around the school, they'll be tired enough to sit down quite often. Yeah, and then he goes, but not before, not before, where? But not before. Before it hurt when I tried to sit still. Yeah, and that just means you got way more energy going through your body. Odds are you were an energy siphon, and probably still are, Philip. That's just the reality behind it. Children are like this. When you're looking at a child, you may see them looking all over the place, like they're watching an invisible tennis game. And they're just like this all over the place. Odds are what they're seeing is energy patterns. Okay. Now, adults are taught, people and kids are taught one thought at a time. What do you think? Kids are taught starting at about 4 years old that's a nice imagination. Now grow up and start behaving yourself. Problem is, it's not the imagination. The belief is that when you say, the belief is seeing is believing, and this is what we're told. If you're not doing what you're told, you're a problem child. Okay, my parents had some certain rules, but it was quite a different setup. Where do we go here? Swift, how you doing? Welcome aboard. I do not recall seeing you in here before, but that being said, this door is open to everybody. Okay, I've only had to remove one person because there's a few rules I do run with here. One, I don't tolerate bullying. I don't always recognize it. That's why I rely on you guys to come in and say something. Okay, but if you've got a question, absolutely put it at least partially in all caps so I can find the thing. Okay, and go ahead and ask whatever question you have, even if you don't, even if the question is not in the topic we're talking about right then. Okay. Cowie'd have way more caffeine than Mountain Dew. And that's why I get a kick out of, like, I've got no problem with pop. Matter of fact, I'm drinking off a pile of it. Probably a bad idea. Iowok's just saying Red Bull and hard liquor is a legal drink to serve though at every bar. Absolutely. But there's a lot of things that are legal to serve. Okay. Doesn't make it a good idea. Okay. It's funny because the monster drinks, I can have a monster drink. They're supposed to be an energy drink. I'll be asleep in under 5 minutes. They're a great knockout drink. And absolutely football. Football is just adding no governmental overthrow talk. We don't do that because the reality is governments are necessary. I do encourage people to get involved in the government and get some people in there that can think a little bit more broadly instead of going, let's see how much we can isolate people from each other. Okay. Where are we here? Adam, are you able to tell when a child's teeth are coming in? Stick your finger in the mouth. No. In your munchkin's case there, Adam, I would be inclined to say she's likely already starting. Okay. Yeah, she's going to have her teeth early. By the way, you best be aware, in your case in particular, you best be aware that little munchkin is already a working medium. She's not going to have imaginary friends. She's going to have people that aren't all that imaginary. They're just incorporeal. And in all likelihood, she's probably already watching them. Philip's just adding for us here that Carl Jung overcame his teachers by assuming they were jerks, especially the one who falsely accused him of plagiarism. I'm glad he overcame that. He's interesting and fun to read. Carl Jung is an interesting read. Yes, I was actually forbidden to take psychology as a young adult. I don't think they do either, Emmy. At the time the Jolt was out, I didn't actually like Coke itself anyway. What do we got here? Iowax is saying, sell a cleaning device to a DARPA contractor for $50 and access to data would be nice. Well, that's just it. Okay. I'm sitting on I was telling a person in the CIA, I've got plans in my head. I've got things going on that they haven't tracked. I am going to be looking into drawing up the schematics for some of it. Okay, now that you see, I like my coffee hot, or more to the point, I like my coffee not icy. When I first started drinking coffee, I drank it with cream. I never put sugar in it. Sadly, I will drink pop without a problem, or I'll have cereal with sugar on it. But sugar in my coffee is just a good way to ruin my coffee. But again, kids themselves are, when we are talking about kids, okay, you got to remember. And when I say kids, by the way, some of you are just coming into your own. I've heard some of you say, look, I was 40 when I realized I was an empath. Nobody points it out. Okay. Nobody bothers pointing. Nobody really knows how to point it out is more to the point. Okay. If your child is staring off into outer space, instead of telling them they're daydreaming, ask them directly, get involved in what they're doing. Ask them directly what they're looking at or who they're talking to. Okay. But don't do it in a derogatory fashion. Understand kids are very sensitive, and as they're getting strong, as they're growing up, it's up to you to ensure they have access to their abilities as they get older. Okay. Now, I was told when I was growing up, my parents tried to keep everything I was doing quiet, to the point of they brought in an African mystic to actually wipe out my ability. And this was what Dad told me. Apparently, there was one other brother that I had that had the same problem. Okay. Only they shut his down. Philip, you're absolutely right. Secret teachings are the teachings. This is why it's like the government doesn't want you to know this. The reality is, many parents propagate that of their own accord, quite by accident, I might add. I must add. I didn't choose to add. I don't know. Anyway, when you take a look at your child's going to learn what you do. Whether you tell them to or not, they're going to pick up what you do. Okay. Now, you notice I've got, and there's one of you, well, I'm meeting actually Adam. I'll be meeting him tomorrow if all goes well. But I brought one in. I'm not going to right now. I brought a figure in the other day, and you can see this one right there. Okay, that's another head. I've got that's another Boston head. I got a whole pile of them down my hall. Okay, because I'm a firm believer that every single one of you is a valuable member of society. There's not one of you, no matter what your age, your upbringing, your belief structure. Okay, belief structure, well, it depends. If you see yourself as better than the person next to you, you may have a problem. Okay, now don't get me wrong. Some of you are better at things than others. I got into a conversation today with my own son, because somebody mentioned this issue of why are the female athletes not being paid what the male athletes in the same sport are paid. And he didn't understand where my problem was. I'm like, there should be no difference. You're doing the same job. Some people will be better at a job, others won't be. Now, I will tell you this. When I was going to school, I was an outsider amongst outsiders. Because, maybe you've got a kid that does this. You'll read a question and you'll know what the answer is, but won't know how you got there. And perhaps some of you went through this. Okay. This is a type of clairsentience, or more to the point, a very specific sense of it. Clairsentience, by the way, is clear knowing. Okay. Precognition is before knowing. Now, in my case, I would read, when I was younger, I would read a mathematical equation and I'd write the answer down and then I'd figure out where it came from. I do the same thing with company policy. In all fairness, Philip, I grew up in a Bible Belt. Okay. I grew up where everybody was heavily religious and psychic phenomenon was the work of the devil. Net result, I got called the devil incarnate a number of times, which worked out rather well. But they were trying to help cut down on the amount of bullying I was going through. Now, the ironic part of that, as much as my parents always told me, don't tell anybody what you're doing. When I was 16, my parents didn't know what to get me for Christmas. But they had heard me talking about something that I'm sure you recognize. Okay. Also known as tarot. And apparently I had been talking to somebody else about it, and Dad overheard me one day. So he bought me Mom and Dad bought me a tarot set. And right now the actual deck I use is gone missing and I don't know where it went. Which is annoying, but welcome to my world. Okay. But they were afraid that I would be, bullied more than I already was. You think about it. The reason I didn't get into smoking was actually peer pressure. Only my method of dealing with it was absolutely off kilter and created a problem for me. Okay. Children will not necessarily fit in. If they sense something different about you, they're going to pick on you. This is all the way through nature. I grew up on a hobby farm. Okay. We had white chickens. But, and of course, when they gave birth, when chicks hatched, the chicks were yellow. But I remember distinctly one clutch that came out, 3 of them were black. Okay, 3 of the chicks were born black with black feathers. Okay, and sad to say, the yellow chickens immediately started picking on the black ones because they were different. Okay, now, of course, me being me, I reached into where the chicks were and I grabbed all the black ones and pulled them out. And I did separate them to make sure that because I wouldn't let them fight. But no, I ended up with a lot of bullying because of the fact, you take a look at my early teenage years when I got into grade 8. One of the older kids came to me and he offered me a cigarette. Now, I'm new to high school, so like all of you, I was edgered and all get out. This guy offers me a cigarette. I said, no thanks, I don't smoke. He goes, come on, you gotta try it. I said, no, I really don't. Then he made the mistake, he goes, but it's the in thing to do. I stopped and I went, wait a minute, the in thing. What do you mean the in thing? He says, it's what all the in crowd does. I said, oh, okay. So if I start smoking, I'll be kind of like the in crowd. He goes, well, yeah, that's right. He says, you really got to try it. I looked at him and I says, but aren't you one of the in crowd? He goes, well, yeah, I guess I am. I said, so what you're telling me, now bear in mind, I'm new to this high school thing. Okay, this is where you're supposed to make an impact, make an impression. I took a look at the kid and I went, so let me get this straight. If I start smoking, I'll be kind of like you. Well, and he goes, yeah, I guess that's right. I says, good reason not to start smoking. Somehow this didn't go over well. I'm not quite sure why that went sideways. I had a couple of kids come up to me and threaten to beat me up because they didn't like the way I looked. I looked at them and casually went, oh, turned my back away and back on them and just walked away. This is not normal behavior. Okay. But no, he didn't quit smoking. But he certainly became one heck of a bully. Fortunately, I had a small cadre of people that Dad had set upon me to make absolutely certain I didn't lose my temper, which you didn't want to see. You still don't. This is one of the reasons why I'm very clearly a pacifist. No, he unfortunately the chap in question was one of the worst known kids in the area. Now, to be honest, I don't recall his name. I thought I did until my 30th grad reunion when I found out the guy I thought was him never smoked a day in his life. But if you've got a kid that seems to be daydreaming, absolutely, you're probably dealing with you may be dealing with a working medium. Okay, you could be working with somebody that is just seeing auras, and they're going to stare at people and just get lost in the appearance. That's just the way that's going to work. Okay. And again, it boils down to your accepting them as a child. Okay, not as a freak of nature. Fortunately, Mom and Dad were quite adamant about my keeping my abilities quiet, but they never chastised me about them. It was funny because Dad actually told one of the neighbors that in all the time I was living at home, and I was at home until I was 18. And Dad told neighbor one day, all the time growing up, 6 kids, 5 brothers, an adopted sister, 2 foster kids, and my parents were also block parents. My dad told this neighbor, he goes, look, he says, in all the time that Keith's been at home, there's only been a handful of things that I was able to sneak into the house without him knowing. Okay. Children will pick up things. And I'm telling you, if you've got a conflicted home, okay, people say never fight in front of kids. I'm telling you, kids are born empathic. They know. Whether you fight quietly or not, they know. The trick is not a question of not fighting in front of kids. It's a question of making up in front of the kids. If you have a fight with your parent, with your kid, with your other half, okay, when you go to make up, and take this in moderation for obvious reasons, make up in front of the kids. In other words, iron things out, get the problem put behind you. This does not mean make out in front of your kids. There are certain things that should probably be kept until the kids are a little bit more emotionally evolved. Absolutely correct, Philip. Children are not born evil. Children are not born prejudiced. They're not born greedy. They're not born selfish. They are born very innocent. So this brilliant concept that children are born of sin is absolutely stupid. Okay. Children are taught to be greedy, vengeful, vindictive, self-obsessed by the people they're around. Okay. This is just the reality of it. Now, it can go to odd places. Like my own ex-wife asked me one day in front of all of us were together, as in the 2 of us and our 2 boys. And she made the mistake. She looks at me and she goes, Why are our two boys so sarcastic? I looked at her and I went, proper training? Apparently that wasn't the right answer, by the way. But some of you are just coming into your own now. I've seen in the chat room, and some of you have brought it to my attention, that you only just, when you hit like 30 or 35, 40 years old, you only just figured out you were empathic. And this is one of the things that I'm looking at, striving to get out to you guys. You're not abnormal. Okay. Kids are taught, by the time they hit about 5, you've been taught to shut down your higher senses and start behaving like an adult. Okay. And the reality is, adults have a creative side as well. In case you hadn't noticed, many of the incredible entertainment things that are being built on electronics, they happen to be based on an imagination. Now, the imagination is something that is there. It is something to be really celebrated. And those differences amongst you and amongst the kids are absolutely imperative. But as your child is getting older, okay, I saw one kid. He was in a school. He was facing the wrong and the other way. He was at one end of the gym. Okay. He was looking at one end of the gym, and there was a bunch of kids behind him. One of the kids got hurt and their arm got hit. Now, this child was looking the other way. All of a sudden, he screams and grabs hold of his arm where the other child got hurt. And everybody's looking at him like, what the heck's going on? And I looked at him and I said, that one's an empath. And of course, 2 out of 3 of them went, what is an empath? The third one goes, that one feels what the other one and what the other kid is going through. I said, bingo. You'll find a lot of kids and many adults have the same problem. Okay. They talk about this being a gift. I'm telling you, growing up that way, not necessarily so much a gift. Okay. But, where are we here? Yeah, Philip's just going, Augustine of Hippo had Pelagius excommunicated for his opposition to original sin. Pelagius argued that this was heresy. Pelagius was excommunicated by the boys in Rome. Well, there's a lot that is absolutely bizarre. The quick calculation. What do we got? Philip, the quick calculation is double it and add 32. Okay, so you've got your temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, doubled is 60 plus 32, about 92. A more accurate version is divide by 5, and multiply by 9, and then add 32. So you end up with that in mind, 30 divided by 5 is 6, times 9 is 54, and 32 is 86. Okay, so there's what you're looking for. Oh, I don't know, 92 is great for a cup of coffee. And this is the thing. Kids are going to respond. You may find the kids will sense you coming up behind them. Okay. That's just plain normal. Okay. It's because, here's the funny thing about it. Okay. And I don't expect anybody to believe what I'm about to say. Do your own research. Okay. Everybody everybody figures your eyesight comes in through the optic nerve. You see what you're looking at. What most people don't realize, by the way, scientists included, is right in that divot at the back of your head. There is an optical receptor, okay, that feeds right into the cerebral cortex. literally speaking, you have eyes in the back of your head. Okay, most people don't know how to tap into this. See, this is why I used to like the old-fashioned method of air conditioning, Adam. You roll down the window, stick your arm out, and drive really fast. Now that only works on the open highway. It doesn't work well in the city. The reality of it is, yeah. Yeah, I appreciate the confirmation there, Frost Kitten. It took me forever to remember that formula. But like I said, 30 by 6 or by 5 is 6 times 9 is 54. Add 32, you've got 86. And away you go. Now, just check and make sure. But the thing we have to remember is a child will, and you'll see this as they get older as well. Most kids are taught by the time they're about 5, maybe 6 years old to quit using their higher senses. You've heard that old saying, children are meant to be seen and not heard. And quite frankly, it's hogwash. Okay. Nice, Adam. I don't blame you there at all. And usually, when it gets too hot when you're driving, I don't know about you, but if I get too hot, I start to get dizzy, which really begs the question, why the heck I'm drinking coffee? But one thing that you got to remember, okay, if you want your kid to grow up observant, take that funny little thing, these things, one of the worst inventions for kids, okay, and for adults. Take this thing, put it aside. When I was on a trip one day, I had my 2 boys with me, and my youngest one goes, lists one of his friends and says, they've got a TV in the car. I said, really? So he said, yeah, we should have one like this. We should have one. How's it going there, Tony? Still breathing today, a little warm, but what the heck? But it's been an interesting day. But no, my son goes, I want to have a TV in my car, in our car. I looked at him, I says, kiddo, we got 4 TVs in our car. I says, technically we got 6. He goes, what do you mean we got 6? I says, you look out the front window, there's a TV that shows where you're going. You look out the back window, you got a TV that shows where you've been. And the 4 side TVs, look out any one of them. Every one of them shows where you are. Right? The munchkin didn't even blink. The following day, he went back to class and he started telling his friends that his car had 4 televisions. Because he was so happy all of a sudden he had a television. And all it boiled down to was modifying his way of looking at things. And this is where modern technology has completely drained a lot of people's outlook. Yeah. Steph, how you doing, Steph? Yeah. Stephanie goes, poor Adam. He's coming home to a good home-cooked Hungarian meal. And wouldn't that be nice, being able to have somebody else cook your meal for you? I like the comment that was made in Avengers Endgame, when Captain America looks at when Captain America looks at Black Widow and goes, I'd offer to make you dinner, but I think you're suffering enough. Yeah, it's going to be an enjoyable one. I've already set things up with the restaurant there, Steph. If there's only 5 of us, there's no problem. The booths I usually get, I'm going to have. As soon as I know you're coming, I'm going to wander down and get to work writing. What do we got here? Philip goes, when I was little, there was a program against higher senses called DARE. They taught us that my ADHD meds were a gateway to injecting hard drugs every day. It wasn't true. Yeah, give the kid. Now, this is the thing that bothers me with politics. Okay. People are being given free illegal drugs, and the drugs needed for the actual ones required for cancer treatments, for, what is it now? For COPD, for thyroid problems and adrenal problems. Those you get charged through the nose for. But the illegal ones that you're supposed to get arrested for, our incredibly intelligent government turned around and went, hey, what an idea. How about if we give them free drugs? Like, I'm sure there was logic there somewhere. They do sell stuff. And yes, the booth that I've got lined up for us, it's the one I live at. They literally call it my booth. That booth, we can put the high chair right beside it. Right at the end of it, no problem at all. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you're not, no doubt there, Emmy. Yeah, if you know you're going home to a good cooked meal, and you like the person you're going home to, odds are you're gonna put your feet on the mat. That's terrible, Philip. That's absolutely terrible. No, I actually had a girlfriend a while back. I took her down to the racetrack to let her actually drive a race car, and they had to bring out a child seat for her to see over the dashboard. I wouldn't hold my breath on that there, Steph. You probably are missing something there, and I'm pretty certain you're aware of that anyway. But no, the nice part about it is, everything I know that I've sensed, you guys don't have a real big problem. Well, Adam does, but that 100 feet of metal behind him is terrible. Well, 5'4" is not bad. You're actually taller than you're taller than my ex-wife. My ex-wife was only 5'3". But, it's not a question of, it really isn't a question of how tall. Okay. It really is a question of how you treat people. And let's face it, that is what is going to make this world a better place, is the way people interact. Yeah, no doubt there, Adam. Oh, well, that is unfortunate, but bound to happen. Unfortunately, Tony Bennett has now passed away. Let's face it, he went. What was it now? Not Tony Bennett. There was another one. Yeah, he was only 96. See, I'm aiming at getting my health back in order so that I can hit at least 137 in a functionally healthy body. Okay, it's been a goal of mine since I was a kid. I had 3 when I was growing up. 1 was to get off this backwoods mud ball. Well, I should have told them don't bring me back, but I did get off it. 2 was to find peace of mind. I managed to get that just about a year ago now. I know exactly who I am, where I came from, what I'm here to do. I don't question where I'm standing anymore. Okay. And the third one was to see the 22nd century in a functionally healthy body. Okay. Well, the 22nd century means I'll be 137. So I'm going to aim for it. My mom actually knew Tony. And yeah, he was always a very polite individual. At least from what she said. She knew him when he was young. Of course, bear in mind, my mom only died 3 years ago. She was 81 when she passed away. Nope, 4 years ago now. Ultimately true, Frost. I figure I'm already living on stolen time. And this is why when I talk about what kids go through, understand a child as they get older is going to start asking questions. Okay. And, they will ask questions at some of the most complicated times. I will tell you this, looking at the issue of Alzheimer's, something that any one of you can do to help stabilize your brain and help it keep going. Okay. Learn another language. Okay. It accesses another part of the brain other than the logic side. It will keep your brain working. And this is the way to overcome or to derail Alzheimer's, senility, this sort of thing. Okay. Keep the brain working. As it turns out, and I still don't know if the government's going to help me, but as it turns out, the end of September, I am going back into a business school to get things moving right. Okay, Philip's going, child question for you. Where do baby storks come from? I'm betting dollars to donuts. I know there's supposed to be a joke in there somewhere, but I have to go with the idea of adult storks. I know there's supposed to be a joke in there, which is kind of a step. Football. Absolutely do. Urdu, from what I understand, is an interesting language, but I think that's over in Africa. That being said, now this comes from relayed to me by somebody who speaks fluent German. I know in Google Translate, they've got Urdu as a language. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you so much for clarifying that there, Philip. Technically, it's close to Africa, but anyway, I know, especially if it's that, you may be able to find a local teacher in a college or something, but Google Translate, at least for German, works really well one sentence at a time. Okay. Do the same thing. If you can't find somebody to directly teach you, do the same thing with Google Translate, one sentence at a time. Okay. And start teaching yourself. Yeah, no doubt there, Philip. How you doing, Joe? Glad you could join us. I'm a firm believer that continuing to learn is imperative. Okay. The moment you start, like my dad always held the idea that it's a bad day if you can't learn something new. That works great there, football. See, I wouldn't be mean enough to start learning a language through music. Of course, I carry a tune in a bucket by taking music sheets and setting them in the bucket and carrying it. The reality of it is every single one of you is a child. And some of you are going to take offense to that. I know I told one kid, I called a 19-year-old kid. He looked at me and goes, I'm not a kid. I looked at him and I said, you got parents, don't you? Well, yeah. Well, then you're a kid. Every single one of you, whether you're a vat job or you were conceived, if you will, in the old-fashioned way, the answer is you're still a child. You still have parents. And every one of you is slowly starting to wake up. And I'm even noticing with some of the people in this chat room, questions are getting to be a lot more focused on outcomes than just a shot in the dark, as it were, because people are learning. And the fact that people in this chat room are learning and are communicating clearly with each other, the support I see in here is absolutely phenomenal. It's absolutely remarkable. And I'm not about to complain about it. One thing I will tell you, and again, just a quick little note. If you haven't done so already, if you like the stream, give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of it. This message that I brought back to the surface again. I've done this many lifetimes in the past, by the way. It's time to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for just about everybody. Okay. Yeah. Philip's going typical Virgo. Yeah. Football's learning it through music. Yeah. Well, Virgos, the nice part about Virgos on the whole, very, very, very positive individuals, usually very creative, and definitely of the 12 signs, Virgo, people with a strong Virgo influence tend to have a better sense of fashion. Myself, I've got a sense of fashion. I figure if I'm dressed, that was good. The nice part, and what do we got here? Yeah, Philip picked up a lot of random trivia. Only I knew how to get my life back. If only I knew how. Tell you what. Okay, and this is going to sound real again. Yeah, I'm not going to make any bones about it. Philip. Where is it? Not that one. There we are. This particular book, this literally holds the backbone of how I turned my life around. How I took it from being bullied all the time, being completely ostracized, and completely disorganized, a massive pack rat, as well as a professional procrastinator. This gives you the key, and you'll notice it's really thick. I'm really, short attention span, I think, but that book contains the secret to it. But I will tell you, the first thing you do to get your life back on track is just one simple little issue. And that is this. If you haven't done so already, put this sign, not this one, I'm not sending you this one. Put these 4 words, I am worth it, on your fridge. Okay, that way every time you walk into the kitchen, you will read that. And the funny thing about it is the fridge is the one appliance in the house that it doesn't matter who it is, you will read what's on the fridge. Yeah. Adam goes, I'm a professional procrastinator. I sit for a living. Yeah, but if you don't pay attention to what you're doing, you're in trouble. And just think of that, Adam. You're going to procrastinate. You can't afford to. You're going down the road, and this may well work on the prairies. Doesn't work with a hoot in the mountains. There's a corner coming up. I'm just going to wait until it straightens out. Not going to happen. But, yes, those 4 words are the 4 strongest words I've come across in my entire life. And I mean my entire life in any language. Okay, they will help pop your self-esteem back in place, eliminate your procrastination, motivate your self-education, and teach you and help you get out of that neat little idea of not communicating with people. It's all linked together. The other critical factor is put a smile on your face. If you don't, if you don't feel like smiling, force the smile. Oh, but people will think it's fake. Well, it is fake, but it's still a smile. Okay. And if that doesn't work for you, then take makeup and paint the thing. Okay, I'm telling you, the reason for it is this. Simply smiling releases endorphins into your brain that will help you feel better right off the bat. Okay, and the sooner you feel better, the sooner you're going to turn around and start doing things to change your life for what you consider the better. Uh-oh, I gotta ask. Frost, what, pray tell, is RBF? Because that's got to be, there's got to be something that ties that. I know a lot of acronyms that I definitely like, but everybody learns by example. Okay, if you're treated like a bully, you're going to, in all likelihood, grow up a bully, unless you can find somebody that can point you elsewhere. Oh. Philip goes, Romanian bullfrog? I like the one that I got told. And like there's a couple of acronyms that work really well. And as a child, you pick them up. Okay, you really do. Children will pick it up. If you treat a child that is empathic and you show them that that's not a bad thing and here's how to cope with it. And this is why I showed you that focus thing. Okay, kids will instinctively, if you hurt yourself, watch a budding healer. Okay, a child instinctively will reach out and put their hand on the down where you bang your your foot, your knee, or whatever. A child will automatically reach out and put their hand on it. Okay, this is an instinctive healing move because if you put your hands together, you can feel the energy between them. Okay, the reality is that children learn by what they see. Yeah, Emmy goes, Philip, I left my heart in San Francisco. I always found if you leave your heart behind, it's really difficult to keep moving. Lord knows, I don't leave my heart behind. The heart just up and stops. But, from the way I look at it is children are going to grow. You are going to awaken. And the reality is the more of us that are waking up, the more people around us are going to wake up. Okay. It's just like turning on a light in a really dark room. You bring those lights together, and all of a sudden you've got yourself a bonfire that gives a lot more light. Watch what happens if a bunch of people light just one candle, okay, each, and you're all walking around. You got this little itty bitty light. Bring all those people together and put the candles in the same place. Now we've got a pretty wide area. The nice part about it is that, I like the way one person put it. We're not raising children. We're raising adults. And the question you've got to ask is, are you giving the children you're dealing with, are you giving them the tools to straighten out the mess that we as adults have left behind? Because I'm telling you, we do not have to have this world come to a grinding halt. But we certainly have to do something about it. And that's not going to happen if we don't get up and start working on it. So I've still got stuff in it. Sorry, it just dawned on me. See, I got a bunch of empty boxes over here I'm going through because I just took all the files out of them to start going through that side of it. But when we're dealing with this world the way it is, okay, it's absolutely imperative. I love the way Whitney Houston put it when she said, the children are our future. Well, kids are waking up faster in spite of the fact they're being derailed by technology. You want to do your kids a favor? I kid you not, mine's bad for it. But this is why I say I'm not perfect. Encourage your kids to find something outside of the internet. We have a power failure, people are lost. Okay, but I will tell you, teach your kids and yourself to start working on improving your instincts. Okay, very necessary. Because I will tell you, the kids that are coming up now, and this started a long time ago, from 2004 till 2007, which was the last 3 years I spent with my original psychiatrist. I spent my hour session helping him understand how to deal with the new kids coming into his field. Okay, kids and adults alike, because he was dealing with uncontrolled telepaths and uncontrolled telepaths and psychokinetics. Yeah. Philip goes, pod people plugged into the matrix. That's the silly part. Everybody worries about being chipped. If you have one of these things, you're already chipped. It's just not subdermal. Okay. But you're already being tracked. And the reality is that pen and paper still works. And yeah, I know the claim, if we use paper, we're cutting down the trees that we need, and we've got to quit cutting down so many trees. Guys, you're cutting down the trees anyway. Only what's happening is it's being chipped and turned into drywall. Okay. Drywall or pressboard or whatever you want to call it. Okay. But, you want to see you want to see adults going to panic. Have a power failure. And oh my gosh, I know one person, they had spent their life basically living on the TV. And the first time they went to a hotel without a TV, it's like, oh my gosh, we've got no TV. And I'm like, we're not going to be in here anyway. I absolutely agree with you there, Frost. Which is probably why I write as much as I do. Well, oddly enough, Philip, you weren't actually mistaken. It is real. Just not for the same reason. Although I do know of some extremely stingy people that literally will recycle toilet paper. And they'll wash it, they'll put it back out to dry, and then put it back on the roll to use it again. To me, this is a little off kilter. Okay. I won't even I recycle everything I can. I just don't do it myself. As in, I don't break cardboard down into something else and turn it into paper. I leave that to somebody else. Children will find when I was growing up, children thought a stick and a rock were fabulous toys. And even today, you take a 2-year-old, you throw a box down with some toy in it, they'll dig the toy out. A lot of the time, they'll play with the wrapping paper. Funny thing there is, the storage wars isn't cheap, people. The reality of it is that, if the authorities in charge were actually thinking, then restaurants, when they had leftover food, would be able to take that leftover food from that day and take it down to the food bank, or just simply turn it over to the homeless. Okay, there is no functional reason. Hey Chad, how we doing? Yeah, Chad goes, vacation day today. No bolts. Wait, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that people really, really do that is beyond control in my eyes. And don't get me wrong, you do what you have to. I don't look down on people like that by any means. Oh, there we go. I'd say wave, but I don't think I can see you to wave. I mean, I can wave at you, but I do hope you're actually feeling better at this point. I will tell you though, Chad, the one thing I found out was persistence is what works. And I took a look at what the doctor said and went, okay, I don't know what I'm up to, so I'm going to actually pay attention. Turned out that it worked really well, but I do hope your healing is coming along properly. I do believe we're going to have a storm tonight, but that's okay. We're allowed. The nice little part about it is every one of you is waking up. And the more we get this message out, the stronger people are going to get. And this is why I say, if you do want a copy of of Positive Perspectives, which is my newsletter, that is 100% free. As in, I'm not charging for it, whether it's physical, whether it's a hard copy or a soft copy. Doesn't matter to me. Okay. The one thing I won't have in it is a whole pile of bad news. I do have a bad news section, but it boils down to, there's bad news out there. Go find it if you really want it. Yeah, unfortunately, I do know people that have got to that point. I'm one of the lucky ones. I cut it really close. Okay. But I have never actually managed to end up on the street, and I'm planning on keeping it that way. I know people that have got to go through that. But again, the only time I look down on anybody is if I happen to be taller than them, or if I'm standing up and they're sitting down, which amounts to the same thing. Okay. I did end up looking down on people when I got onto a plane the last time. Something about the people were not above me. You know, some restaurants actually won't let you there, Philip. Okay, you're talking about at a restaurant. Some restaurants, especially ones that are like an all-you-can-eat buffet, they won't let you take it home. Okay, but I strongly encourage people, if you're going out for dinner and you don't finish what's on the table, absolutely take it with you. Okay, Lord knows that's what I do. Of course, in all fairness, I don't have that problem. As in, I don't end up leaving food over. The reality is that we have to look out for each other. I love the way it was put in X-Men Apocalypse. Okay, where Xavier literally told everybody in the world, my message to you, and this is the same message from me to you, those of you that have the strength, that have the power, take care of those that don't. Okay, but teach them how to take care of themselves. Don't just, somebody says, can you give me some money? Find out what they want it for, and then get what they're lacking. If somebody asks me for money because they're trying to get food, I'll go into a grocery store and bring it out to them. Okay, because that's just the way I operate. Where we go? Phil goes, that's why not to go to a buffet dinner, except a buffet that comes with an additional meal to go. The ironic part is, Joe, okay, and this is something my father pointed out to me. My father wasn't into the paranormal either, but your family is afraid of the unknown. You know, my guess is they've been taught that if you cannot see it, it's evil. Okay, and if you can't quantify it, it's a problem. You know, but whatever you do, and I know you don't, you're one of these rare people that goes, this is what I believe. I'm not going to call you down because of what you believe. Unfortunately, I can safely say the odds are that that's not a return trip. In other words, they likely look at you as, oh, you're the black sheep. Lord knows I was considered a lot of things over the years. My brothers to this day will deny it. But only two of them deny it at this point. The other two are dead. You know, but I don't even try and explain to my brothers just exactly what I'm going through. I've sent them the information. So if they happen to try to chime in, if they happen to come into the chat room or watch the videos later, that's great. But that's as far as I'm going with it. You know, we have to remember that people are, you know, that each person has their own beliefs. And there's nothing wrong with having different beliefs. There's something wrong with telling people their belief, because it's not yours, is wrong. Oh, in my case, I actually sent my brothers the information, like the books I've been writing. I've sent them information on it. I've told them about my YouTube channel. I've told them about the newsletter. You know, and we have gotten into discussions. My little brother come to me one day. Now, bear in mind, I wrote a book called Believe in Your Finances and Follow Your Dreams. I've got another one I haven't translated, or more to the point, I haven't redone it to get it printed, called Fortunes Forever. My little brother come to me and he goes, we got to sit down and make sure you're handling your finances properly. I looked at him and I said, kiddo, I said, I've tracked mine to the penny. How are yours sitting? You know, in my case, I'm not wealthy by any means yet, but the way I've laid out the kind of my company growth, and I'm just starting to work on the actual progressions and what have you. The way I've laid it out, I am geared to handle $1 billion a month coming in. Okay, yes, it's shooting for the stars. Heck, it's shooting for the next galaxy. But even if I only get to the moon, I'm still ahead of the game. Okay, and this is just the way it's going to be for me. Okay, I've laid it all out where 80% of my net profit. Okay, now if I look at that, see, it costs my net profit. I had to figure out a baseline for it. Okay, I had to figure out a baseline for it. My income tax gives me a 10% claim against my business because my business is home based. So 10% of 2,500, which is what I can live high on the hog with in my house, covering all my rent, utilities, insurance, transportation, medical, entertainment, all of it I can do on 2,500 easy. And let's not forget food. Okay, so 10% of that, my overhead for my company is 250. So if I make over 250, okay, after expenses are all paid, then I'm looking at 10% of that, 10% of 80% of that will go back to the people helping me build the company, customers that buy from it, whether it's a book, whether it's a consulting deal, whatever, doesn't matter. For me, I mean, I was in a grocery store the other day, and I had a few things on my till, at the till, and the woman behind me had a little kid, 6 or 7, nice little kid. He was behaving, and mom was trying to piece together the money, and she was going through her coins to see if she could pull it off. And I looked at her, and I looked at the cashier, and I called the cashier by name, and I said, "Look, don't argue with me, don't discuss it with her. Just put her bill on my bill. Put her stuff on my bill." And as expected, the young lass looks at me and goes, "Oh, you can't do that." I said, "Certainly I can. I do it all the time." Okay, like I said, I'm not wealthy, but I'm also of the opinion that if you're struggling, if you're striving to get ahead, I will absolutely do my best to make certain that happens. Okay, I won't hang myself out to dry to do it. Okay, but, from my standpoint, it really boils down to this. If I'm willing to help a total stranger, why would I not be willing to help the kids of my own family? Or my ex-wife, which is what I ended up doing the other day. She looks at me and she goes, "You shouldn't be doing this. We're not married." I said, "I'm not married to half the people I deal with." Or matter of fact, I'm not married to any of the people I deal with. But for me, it's a simple issue. I've got a little, I'm going to share it. I don't see the problem with it. Okay, and this is something I definitely desire to pass on. And this is why I say, if you haven't already done so, do give us a thumbs up. If you like the stream, do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of it. It's time we start reminding the world that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Not everybody will be comfortable with it. Some of the people out there, possibly some of you, but I doubt very much anybody that's listening to this stream falls into this. Some of you may look at it and go, "I deserve more money than everybody else because I've had a hard life." Well, you may have had a hard life. And how things went that got you to where you are. Okay, there's nothing you can do about that side of it. Okay. Yeah, sometimes that can be a lot of fun there, Philip. I've met a number of people, that I used to know. There's a number of, like, a lot of my current friends. 400 years ago, I burnt at the stake. Not necessarily a good first impression, but it worked. I met the girlfriend that I had in 1828. I met her. As a matter of fact, we hit it off so well this lifetime that when I was out there, she introduced me to her current husband, and he's the one that ensured I went out to their place for 3 years running when I was going out there. He'd come out, collect me up, and made certain that I got a home cooked meal. Okay, and of course, his wife turns around and goes and says, "You don't have a problem that this is my ex?" And he goes, "First, it's your ex-boyfriend. Second, it's your ex-boyfriend from 200 years ago. From almost 200 years ago." He goes, "No, I'm not worried about him." It was kind of an interesting run. But that said, guys, I got a lot of work I got to deal with because of the fact that I'm already booked for tomorrow night. I won't be on the air tomorrow night. Okay, but I will be back Sunday afternoon, at which point we have an open forum. And again, absolutely, bring your questions. Doesn't matter what field they're in, I will do my best to give you an answer. So That being said, we're hitting the 2 hour mark here. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I really do appreciate it. And I will absolutely get back to you as quick as I can. If you've got questions that didn't get answered, absolutely drop me a line. There's a whole list of ways to get a hold of me. Okay. That said, I will absolutely catch up with you soon. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.